Okay.
Yeah.
Well, right.
So did you know that they're going to drop high rises in like rain all through San Diego? Through everywhere in San Diego.
I heard something about that too. I think that's not everywhere. I hear that like bigger amounts of high rises in different areas. and I heard Hillcrest has got the really big FAR of 8.
Well, I like the idea of dropping them near transit. That's a really good idea. And then also just having more transit, bicycles, people, places to walk to. All of that seems good. And then high-rise dropping in the right places.
Well, I would wonder why there's such a big shift and all of a sudden why they changed the law so quickly.
I'm wondering, how did that happen? Why?
Well, if you haven't done anything about the housing crisis in San Diego for 60 years, then when you decide to do something about it, it is going to be a bit of an abrupt change. But if they had addressed it incrementally all along, we wouldn't have these huge contrasts in scale.
I think there's more to it.
Well, something else is going on. Yeah. How come all of a sudden we're going to throw out all the zoning requirements? I understand. You can have any setback you want. You can have any height limit you want. You can have any parking ratio you want. Get all these incentives not to build all the planning things. Wonder what it's going to be like. I guess one day it'll be all right. I don't know.
Plug-in capsule. Look at the beautiful project by Kisho Kurokawa. Plug-in capsules.
What's plug-in capsule look like? Are they?
Tell us more, Ralph.
Well, there's the version where it's just a place to sleep, and that's not Kisho Kurokawa's. His has got small units, micro units that plug in.
So it's a metabolist solution.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that a model for a city?
I don't know. I have a feeling that, FARs of 8 have been downtown for how long? 8s and 10s have been downtown for as long as I remember. And it never really made anybody build 8s and 10s. So because they didn't. I mean, it took forever. It took years and years and years, right? So when I first started thinking about this, I'm going, oh my God, this is going to happen right away. Isn't that going to be great? We're going to have Brooklyn in about 5 years. But it's more like we're going to have a mismatch of big and small for 50 years. Something like that, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm really worried about, actually, is, what could be cool is if there are parks or linear parks or something that separate the big from the small. So you could have a unified edge next to a park of big buildings, and then maybe have a historic neighborhood on the other side. So, just paying attention to scale, I think, is going to be important, and having open space that helps to define some of the stuff so you can actually perceive it.
Oh, but that's one of the incentives. You don't have to have open space.
Oh no!
So I don't know. I think they actually do want parks, don't they?
Oh, they do. In fact, the part of the complete communities is you get to the development impact fee, the DIF, used to include parks. So if you do units that are less than, I think, 500 square feet, maybe it's 300 square feet, I think it's 500, you don't pay the DIF. But someone stepped in and said, well, that means there's not going to be any park money either. And so I think they have a separate thing where you do pay the DIF, or a portion of it, or they scale it or something like that. But anyway, so who knows what's going to happen. But I just always sit there and go like, isn't everybody going to just push back as soon as we build one of these giant towers in the middle of this?
Isn't it going to be market driven, really, in the final analysis? Isn't it going to be market driven?
Well, yeah. I mean, and so what's the market? That's the other thing to talk about is market. What's the market? And I don't think making all of a sudden developers come in and say, hey, we can make some buildings, but it's just too hard with all these zoning ordinances. And so they don't want to have any zoning ordinance so they can build the buildings. But if you look at these things, the first thing that's happened in Hillcrest is the price of a property has skyrocketed immediately, because everybody's little fourplex or eightplex is all of a sudden got an FAR of 8 on it, And so the prices are going way up, so I don't think there's going to be an affordability in this other than the restricted units. It's just going to be, because why would you? I mean, the developer's going to build his big old project, put 40% of the existing underlying zoning, which is affordable, and you're just going to have big buildings, and they're going to need to get tall. When they get tall, they're going to be expensive. Simple as that. Affordable housing, everybody should remember, affordable housing is old housing. That's old housing is affordable housing. I don't think anybody ever says that. Why don't we build some affordable housing? Well, why don't we let some housing get old and
It's really hard to
keep
build.
painting it and not do it over?
It's really hard to build a 40-year-old building yet tomorrow. Well, I'm wondering, I mean, Hillcrest is one thing in the neighborhood south of Mission Valley, but I was looking at Claremont and corner of Balboa and Genesee. You've got 85 acres. It's all under basically one owner. And so you could maybe, the city loves to do those deals with one guy and give him some incentives for density in exchange for some open space. Might be workable there. Then you'd have downtown Claremont.
You're saying down Claremont is, you mean the big giant shopping center there is owned by one guy? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, mostly. Yeah, 85 acres. It's a condo map for the little satellite drive-throughs and stuff. But it's a big chunk of property in one guy. City loves to do those kind of deals.
Well, they did a cool map. It looks like bubbles. And every transit stop, they drew a radius around it. And it made this bubbled map. And I've been looking at it in Hillcrest and noticed that got high rises on Albatross Street at the end of Kathy's house, by the way.
No shit.
No kidding. And it's an FAR of 8, it looked like, right there on Robinson at Albatross. Kind of amazing. So you kind of wonder where it is. I haven't looked at a bunch of other places.
Is there a reason why they have to say, does it have to be such a blunt instrument where it's everywhere within a certain radius, or can they say certain lots along certain streets and develop corridors?
Well, it's been done, It seems like there's a lot of guys working away right now trying to figure it out, doing outreach to the neighborhood and communities, and there's all the voting going on with the community groups that have lost their power, and there's all that going on, but I don't know how they're going to regulate it. When you talk to the planners, they say, well, anybody brings anything in and they can build anything. They can break every rule, and do that.
It's the wild, wild west.
The Wild West. Now, we always made fun of Houston, right?
Yeah.
Was everybody's city was the Wild West, and
Right.
it's like crazy they can do, and sometimes as a kind of a rogue developer, you kind of go, I love Houston, that sounds the greatest thing ever, just get the planning department out of my way. I'll do a great building, but then all of a sudden you go like, no, you won't. You'll
It's
run
an
into the same
unmitigated-
economic problems.
That is an unmitigated disaster.
You mean Houston?
Yeah, no doubt about it. And the reason is that they never responded to transit, number one. So you've got these enormous freeways, so you have horrific traffic. You have this banality that runs for square miles. It's worse than Los Angeles. I mean, you really cannot tell what part of town you're in, and it's gigantic. It's probably 60 miles across. And it's completely nondescript. There is no sense of neighborhood. There is no sense of place at all, except in the core, where the older places. But everything else that's new around these rings, it looks exactly the same. It's the same story over and over again.
And they've got the exploding fertilizer plant across the street
Well,
from the
and they
elementary
relaxed,
school, right?
They relaxed all oversight. There's no oversight. Pretty interesting.
You have like 30 and 40 story high rises next to 2-story stuff.
Right.
Right next door.
You have no real attention to how the building meets the street. That's the main problem.
Right.
When you travel to downtown Houston,
No street wall at
there's
all.
it's just absolutely terrible. I mean,
No
there's
street wall.
a very bad experience. It's a poor experience.
Well, they're not done yet.
Yeah, they're not done.
Yeah, it's
Well, that's it, but the city's never done. That's the problem.
it's evolving. It's evolving. So what I would like to see is somebody take a look at the streets because they're so wide, and I am glad that they're doing bike paths, and I'm glad that they're looking at parking on streets in a different way, to narrow the streets. But I'm also wondering, can there be another lot pattern where they take advantage of the streets, and well, what I'm saying is you can't be a slouch.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. No slouches.
No slouches.
I think we've got a title for our little discussion here.
Can't be a slouch. Thank you all for listening, and you're still here, that's great. Go look at Hillcrest and cross your fingers. Pray for the best.
Hope for the best.
Well, yeah, right?